Have you ever wondered why some women choose to live alone, not as a temporary phase, but as a deliberate, sacred vow? Not because they couldn't find someone, not because they were abandoned, but because somewhere along the line, they realized that peace was more nourishing than performance. That solitude was not silence, but sanctuary. These women walk through life not begging to be seen, but daring to be misunderstood. They are not lonely. They are alone, yes, but by choice, not by circumstance. And that choice carries weight. In a world that tells her she must be chosen to matter, she turns inward. She doesn't chase a partner to validate her existence. She doesn't decorate her life with distractions. Instead, she builds an interior cathedral made of stillness, truth, and memory. Carl Jung called this the path of individuation, the process of becoming whole, not through the approval of others, but through a journey into the self. These women are not waiting to be completed. They've torn down the illusion that they were ever incomplete to begin with. They've faced the shadow, the dark, murky parts of themselves society told them to suppress. Rage, jealousy, unworthiness, abandonment, all of it dragged into the light. And instead of denying it, they sat with it, asked it questions, gave it a name. Because here's the thing, when a woman no longer fears her own darkness, she becomes ungovernable. Men, relationships, roles, they become choices, not lifeboats. She can want them. She can love. But she no longer needs. That's what terrifies people the most. Not the solitude itself, but the sovereignty it represents. A woman alone and at peace breaks every cultural spell that says her value must come from her reflection in a man's eyes. And make no mistake, this woman is not hardened. She hasn't given up on love. She simply refuses to bleed for it anymore. She's redefined intimacy, starting with the most radical act of all, learning to sit with herself, without running, without numbing, without searching for the next hit of validation to soothe the ache of abandonment. It's not always glamorous. The nights are quiet, sometimes too quiet. Memories echo. Doubt visits. The past knocks. But unlike before, she doesn't bolt the door. She lets it in. She listens. And then she lets it leave. Because there's a difference between isolation and solitude. Isolation is what you feel when you're surrounded by people who don't see you. Solitude is what you choose when you finally do. And the longer she stays in this place of inner reverence, the more she begins to see that the life she's building isn't lacking. It's overflowing. Her space, her schedule, her sleep are hers alone. No tension curling in her stomach from walking on emotional eggshells. No dimming herself to keep someone else's ego intact. She realizes how often love had actually meant survival. How often she'd traded parts of her soul just to feel chosen. How often the relationship had been a stage, not a sanctuary. And that's when everything shifts. Not because she's closed off, but because she's opened up. To a deeper truth. To a life that doesn't center around being palatable, pretty, pleasing. You feel it, don't you? That slow-burning power in a woman who's stopped performing. The way she speaks from the chest, not the throat. The way her eyes don't dart in search of approval, they land, still and sure. She doesn't shrink in the presence of masculinity. She doesn't compete with it either. She simply is. And if you find her intimidating, it's not because she's harsh. It's because she's whole. And wholeness can't be controlled. She wakes up without needing to be needed. There is no performance waiting at sunrise. No mask she has to wear to be adored, accepted, or tolerated. The silence of her space isn't empty, it's honest. It speaks to her in a language that doesn't lie. There's coffee brewed exactly how she likes it. Books she's not reading to impress anyone, but because they make her think, feel, grow. Her mirror doesn't judge, because she's not looking to see what others might see. She's searching for recognition of herself. This woman isn't bitter. She isn't cold. She's simply reclaimed the energy she once gave so freely to those who never knew what to do with it. She stopped auditioning for roles that demanded she be smaller, softer, less sensitive, less much. And this inner fullness wasn't born overnight. It came from grieving 1,000 identities she wore to survive. The sweet one, the helper, the fixer, the desirable, the accommodating, the one who smiled even when her stomach was clenched in dread. Each of them served a purpose. None of them were her. So she shed them layer by layer. With each goodbye, she stepped closer to herself. And with that, the world began to feel different. Louder, sharper, more alive. Like finally waking up after years of spiritual anesthesia. Carl Jung spoke of the anima, the feminine soul, deeply intuitive, emotionally intelligent, rooted in connection. But when society demands that feminine energy be constantly in relation to others, it forgets the truth. The anima doesn't need a partner to be expressed. She is not defined by the masculine gaze. She is the gaze. She sees deeply, including into the intentions of those who approach her. This is why men don't always know what to do with her. She doesn't play by the unspoken rules. She's not seduced by status, flattery, or grand declarations. She listens to the feeling underneath the words. She senses manipulation before it ever arrives at the surface. She doesn't want to be adored if it costs her authenticity. She doesn't want love that asks her to trade freedom for fantasy. And to many, that's seen as defiance, rebellion. But in truth, it's devotion to herself, to the life she's shaping with hands that used to only build for others. She is no longer waiting to be rescued from loneliness. She has made peace with it, sat beside it in the dark, heard its voice. And what it told her was this: you are not alone because you are unworthy of love. You are alone because you are worthy of something more. Love that does not diminish you. Love that is not earned through exhaustion. Love that recognizes the divine architecture of your soul and does not ask you to demolish it just to fit inside someone else's blueprint. So she waits, not in desperation, but in discernment. She dances. She laughs. She builds. She rests. And if someone is to join her life, they must come not to complete her, but to witness her. To meet her where she is, not drag her back into who she used to be. You might feel this too. That rising tension in your chest when you think about what you've settled for in the past. That ache of truth pressing against your ribs, whispering, you were never supposed to disappear inside someone else. This is the invitation. To stop contorting yourself to be held. To stop confusing chaos for chemistry. To stop fearing the quiet truth of your own soul. You are not too much. You are simply too real for people still addicted to illusions. There is strength in your solitude. Not because you've sworn off connection, but because you've sworn off betrayal. The betrayal of your own needs, your voice, your essence. And when you understand this deeply in your bones, you no longer beg to be chosen. You choose. There's a quiet revolution happening in the hearts of these women. Not loud, not televised, but fierce and unshakable. They are rewriting what it means to be feminine, not soft in the face of exploitation, but sovereign in the face of pressure. They no longer define femininity by sweetness or sacrifice. It is now measured in boundaries, in clarity, in the ability to say no without guilt and yes without fear. They have walked away from tables where their worth was only acknowledged when they were useful, pleasing, convenient. They have broken bread with their loneliness, looked it in the eye and said, "You may stay, but you will not define me." The world often misunderstands women like this. Society doesn't know where to place them. She's too powerful to be pitied, too peaceful to be pitied, too whole to be owned. And that scares people. Because a woman who is not seeking approval is a woman no one can manipulate. So rumors emerge. She's cold. She's bitter. She's broken. But the truth? She's free. She has transcended the performance. She no longer shapeshifts to be palatable. She speaks not to be liked, but to be heard. She moves not to attract, but to express. She rests not because she's lazy, but because her body is no longer a machine for someone else's expectations. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of individuation, the becoming of the self, the unification of conscious and unconscious, the merging of shadow and light. It is not a straight path. It is a spiral. She's met parts of herself she once exiled, and she didn't flinch. She reached out and pulled them back home. That girl who once begged to be seen? She is no longer begging. She is choosing. And perhaps most powerful of all, she has forgiven herself. Forgiven the times she stayed too long. The moments she abandoned herself for crumbs of attention. The years she believed being chosen meant being worthy. That forgiveness is sacred. It is the ritual through which shame dissolves and wisdom rises. She now knows that healing is not a straight line. It is a dance between grief and grace, between remembering and releasing. She no longer punishes herself for not knowing better, because now she does. If she loves again, and she might, it will be a conscious love. A love that doesn't ask her to be anything but who she is when no one is watching. A love born not of desperation, but discernment. And if she doesn't love again, not romantically, she won't see it as failure. Because here's the secret few will ever admit. A woman who truly knows herself will never feel lonely in her own company. She will walk through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing to prove. She doesn't need a witness to her worth. She is the proof. And in her solitude, she will not diminish. She will expand. No longer a shape molded by expectation, but a presence carved by truth. She doesn't rage at the past anymore. She thanks it. The heartbreaks, the betrayals, the nights she cried until her chest ached, each one stripped away what was false. Each one brought her closer to the core. And now that she's found it, she guards it like sacred ground. Because once a woman knows her own soul, no one else gets to define her story. Not the parents who told her to be small. Not the lovers who confused control with care. Not the world that told her she was running out of time. She's not running out of time. She's finally in it. Fully present. Fully here. Fully hers. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.